Hey, did you hear? Ireland, Spain, and Norway have decided to recognize a Palestinian state. This is huge news, but it actually says a lot more about what's going on in their own countries than anything else. Sure, it's a big deal diplomatically and could put some pressure on their allies to take a firmer stance on the Israel-Hamas conflict. But let's be real, no amount of pressure, not even from the US, has changed Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's mind. Israel even recalled their ambassadors from these countries, accusing them of rewarding terror. There's a lot of debate about what this recognition really means and how it helps the Palestinian cause in the long run. But for most European countries, the stakes are pretty low when it comes to Israel and the Palestinians. In places like Ireland, Spain, and Norway, backing a Palestinian state is popular with voters and doesn't hurt politically. That's not true everywhere in Europe, though. Germany, Hungary, Poland, and the UK have stuck by Israel, supporting a peaceful two-state solution but also being consistent allies of Israel. In the meantime, scenes from the conflict continue to shock, like the recent Israeli strike on Jabalia in Gaza. This brings up tough questions about military support and whether selling arms to Israel might violate international law, something the UK is currently wrestling with. But honestly, these are mostly domestic issues. Europe has largely left the Middle East, especially Israel, to the US, partly because of America's military presence there. Europe's influence in the Middle East isn't massive. The region didn't really dominate European politics until the Arab Spring, which brought a wave of migrants and raised security concerns. Europeans do care about the Middle East and the Palestinian cause, especially in places like Ireland, which has its own history of occupation, and Norway, famous for the Oslo Accords. The European Union has always supported humanitarian aid to Palestinian territories and a two-state solution. The European Commission even reiterated this commitment after the recent news. But whether this move actually advances peace is unclear. This isn't a united European front. Norway isn't in the EU, and it's doubtful all 27 EU member states would follow Ireland and Spain's lead. It might nudge bigger players to take a stand, but Europe doesn't speak with one voice and probably won't anytime soon. But before we dive deeper, remember to hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to the channel. Do it now, because later you'll be too busy arguing about politics with your cat. While Spain, Norway, and Ireland are partying with Palestine, countries like Germany, Hungary, Poland, and the UK are still RSVPing to Israel's party. Now, you might ask why there's such a divide in Europe's stance on this issue. Well, it's not as simple as picking a side in a schoolyard fight. On one hand, we have Spain, Norway, and Ireland who've recognized Palestine as a state. This decision may seem like a bold move, but it's more reflective of the domestic politics within these countries rather than a direct challenge to Israel. Sure, it puts a bit of diplomatic pressure on the situation, but it's unlikely to make Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lose any sleep. On the other side, we have countries like Germany, Hungary, Poland, and the UK who continue to show strong support for Israel. Now, this doesn't mean they're turning a blind eye to the conflict. In fact, the issue of military support to Israel has raised some pretty thorny questions about complicity in the conflict. It's even led to pressure on the UK government to disclose legal advice on arms sales. But, as of now, these countries maintain their stand. Europeans have traditionally viewed the Middle East as a US responsibility, dipping their toes in the waters only occasionally. Their influence in the region has been limited, to say the least, until the Arab Spring and the subsequent migrant crisis. Despite the European Union's humanitarian aid and support for a two-state solution, there's no coordinated European effort on the Palestinian issue. It's like trying to get a group of friends to agree on a movie to watch on a Saturday night. So as you can see, Europe is as divided on this issue as a pie on a family reunion. But hey, who said politics was easy? Big news this week. ICC prosecutor Karim Khan dropped a bombshell by announcing his office has requested arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and 3 top Hamas officials, including their leader Yahya Sinwar. The ICC claims they've all committed war crimes and crimes against humanity during the long, brutal conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Those who break the law can't complain when we take action, Khan declared. That day has come. Reactions were swift and, no surprise, super controversial. Both Israeli and Hamas leaders are furious. rejecting the idea that their actions are being treated equally. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken chimed in too, arguing that the ICC doesn't have jurisdiction here. It's important to note that neither the U.S. nor Israel have signed the ICC's founding Rome Statute, which means the ICC's power over them is pretty limited. With the Gaza conflict ongoing and pushing the boundaries of international law, the possibility that the ICC might actually issue these warrants could shake things up in a big way for Israel, Palestine, and beyond. So, what's next? Right now, no arrest warrants have been issued yet. Khan's request needs to be approved by a panel of 3 ICC judges from Romania, Benin, and Mexico. As Time mentioned, it is not guaranteed they will agree to issue the warrants. There's no set time frame for their decision, but according to Heidi Dijkstal from the Atlantic Council, the chamber has been pretty quick in the past, sometimes granting arrest warrants within about a month. If the warrants do get issued and arrests happen, trials for these kinds of crimes usually take years. Chatham House pointed out that gathering and preserving reliable evidence is particularly tough during active conflicts and often needs the consent of states to access certain areas. Those accused could try to challenge the warrants by showing that there's an independent and impartial judicial process in their own countries that's ready to handle the case instead of the ICC, as Dijkstal explained. So what does all this mean for the peace process? Well, it's as uncertain as a weather forecast in London. You see, the recent recognition of a Palestinian state by Spain, Norway, and Ireland sends a ripple through the international community. But it's like throwing a pebble into the ocean. The wave it creates is unlikely to reach the shores of Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's position remains steadfast, unswayed by these recognitions. The European countries, despite their humanitarian aid and support for a two-state solution, lack a unified voice on the Palestinian issue. It's like a choir singing off key. The melody is there, but the harmony is missing. And without a harmonious, unified front, the impact of these recognitions on the peace process remains uncertain. It's a bit like trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle with pieces from different puzzles. You might get an interesting picture, but it won't be the one on the box. The peace process is such a puzzle, and Europe's disjointed stand on the matter is adding more pieces to an already complex picture. So folks, the future of the peace process is as clear as mud. And on that cheerful note, we're signing off. Remember, politics is a game, but subscribing to this channel is not. So hit that subscribe button and we'll catch you in the next one.